We have more reaction to the Adrian Kempe contract, fans questioning Jim Hiller's lineup and coaching decisions, and more on this fan feedback edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, also one of the co-hosts of Locked On NHL Game Night, a nightly podcast and YouTube show that wraps up the night in the NHL, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. It is time for another fan feedback episode, a little bit later than we normally do it. Very rare. The Kings had games on Thursday and Friday, which caused the feedback show to be pushed back a day, but it is here for you. Your chance as a Kings fan to sound off on or ask questions about our favorite hockey team. Good group of emails this week, so let's get right into it. And we start with Frank in Burbank, and he says, I'm writing this immediately following the Kings-Sharks game. First off, I'm very happy Kempe is finally signed. I can now purchase my Kings third jersey with the number 9 on it without an unrealistic fear of jinxing the deal. Now that Kempe's box is checked, what do you think the next move will be? With Kopi retiring and Q just not figuring it out, I'm not sure what to look forward to past this season. Kings are scratching and clawing for every goal they score, where most games are low scoring and way too many go into overtime. There's no exciting players in the system to look forward to making a difference in the near future. There's also no big fish free agents this offseason. Do we make a coaching change for a more offensive-minded system? Do we make a big trade to bring in a legitimate goal scorer? If so, who? Is it time to finally cut bait on QB and trade him while he still has potential value? Thanks for all you do and for keeping the show entertaining every day. And that was Frank in Burbank. Well, Frank, I appreciate those sentiments. I will have to admit that I was sweating it out a little bit with my 2 Kempe jerseys I bought within the past year. So I was with you on that situation, but you certainly asked a lot of great questions. I might have answered some of them a little bit with some of our shows this week where I talked about kind of looking down the road now that Kempe had been signed. I think you're right about a lot of things. There is no superstar type player in the Kings system as it stands right now. Maybe Carter George turns into that as far as a big time goaltender. I think that's possible. Liam Greentree is a good prospect, but I don't know that he's projected to be any kind of a superstar at all. I think he could be a very, very good Dustin Brown type of a player, which isn't bad, but it doesn't really move the needle as far as somebody that's going to come in and really kind of change the fortunes of the franchise, like we've seen with some of these ridiculous young players, Matthew Schaefer with the Islanders or Macklin Celebrini with the Sharks. As far as a coaching change, it all depends on how this season goes. Right now, I don't think there's any movement for that, but the way things are so competitive, if the Kings go on any kind of a legitimate slide, I think that scenario will be brought up. I will say I don't believe there's any scenario where the Kings cut bait on Quinton Byfield. Yes, we would all like for him to be more dynamic and a little bit more of a game-changing type of a player, but he's still a very good player. He's still the Kings' best young player. I don't see the Kings doing anything like that as far as trading Quinton Byfield. Bill in Rialto says, Adrian Kempe's contract signing was a mess. He did not deserve what he got. We needed to pay him more for being our number 1 star. Also, what does this say to future players that come to LA? If we ever decide to purchase anyone else in the future, it'll be a hard pill to swallow if we're paying them more than Kempe. And Kempe playing with someone knowing they paid him more would be a downer for me as well as him. I would think it would be a turnoff for any future prospect knowing what Kempe signed for. They might not even consider coming to LA. Our power play sucks. Kuzi is MIA. The only thing keeping us in the running for top replacements is Kemper. We need to do more to help him out. Is it too soon to talk Hiller firing? Sorry for the rant. Just want us to win already. Go Kings, go. Go Rain, go. And that was Bill in Rialto. Well, I addressed the Hiller thing. I don't think that it's time to be talking about that personally. I will say, I know a lot of people have wanted to see Jim Hiller gone. I said in the offseason I would have replaced him, but he's the coach. I'm not, going to be carrying a torch to, say this guy needs to go at this point. I just don't think, we can say it, we could want it to happen, I guess, but it's just not going to happen right now. And I don't know that there's anything at this point to say that needs to happen. But I get it. I said on the show that regarding players and talking about the Adrian Kempe contract, organizations should reward players that deserve to be rewarded. I think it sends a message to the other players on the team that you are an organization, you are a general manager that rewards players that deserve to be rewarded. And Kempe was that player, is that player. Show the other players that you're a GM that's going to do that. You're an organization that's going to do that. Now, if you didn't like Adrian Kempe before, and I have no idea why that would be the case, you got to love what he did for the Kings, because he literally took millions of dollars less to stay in LA. And I understand he's a multimillionaire and he should have enough money for the rest of his life to live comfortably. But how many other players do that kind of thing? It's rare. I know Connor McDavid did it in Edmonton, but his next contract will be some monster contract. But this was Kempe's kind of final big contract. And he gave the Kings a hometown discount. And you got to, I don't know why you wouldn't love him for that. But I also like to be fair when I talk about things. And if the goal of a general manager is to sign a player for the least amount of money that you can while still signing the player, it's also hard not to say that Ken Holland did his job. Didn't do his job. He did his job, right? If that's kind of part of what you think a good general manager is. I think he took a risk unnecessarily. I think it worked out for him in the end. I think he's very lucky that Adrian Kempe clearly really wanted to stay with the LA Kings, because it could have very, very easily gone the other way. It could have been very easy for Kempe to say, screw you, I can make $12 million a year somewhere else. And if you don't want to pay me, I'll leave at the end of the year. He could have very easily done that, and he didn't. So it did work out for the Kings. If Adrian Kempe's happy, it worked out for him, and it worked out for Ken Holland, but it could have gone the other way very easily. Jason in Reno checks in. He says, thanks for all the insights you put out every day. I'm an everydayer, listened for the last 2 seasons. I love the podcast. Thank you, Jason. I've been impatiently waiting for the Kempe re-signing since before the season. I'm thrilled that it finally got done. Future question is, who do you think will be the captain after this season with Kopitar retiring? Do you think it could be Kempe, being that he has turned into one of the bigger leaders on the team and someone that will be around for an extended time? And that was Jason in Reno. Actually did talk about this on a recent show. May have been before you sent the email in. I think 100% Drew Doughty will be the next captain of the LA Kings, as long as he's on the Kings. And that is a question, though. How long will he be here? His contract is up after next season. I do think it's possible that Drew Doughty doesn't finish his career in LA. I think he would prefer to do that. I think he would prefer to be a Kings for life. But I also think Drew Doughty wants to play in games that matter for the rest of his career. And if the Kings go into a full rebuild and they're going to be bad for a while, he doesn't want his final few years in the NHL to be in that situation, I believe. So I think he would consider being traded to a team that has cup aspirations, that wants to add a veteran defenseman who's won the Stanley Cup, that kind of a thing. I could see that happening. As for Kempe and him being locked up long-term, if Drew Doughty does, well, I would say when Drew Doughty eventually does retire or move on, I think Adrian Kempe would be a great choice for captain of the LA Kings. I've heard Mikey Anderson's name being mentioned as well. I think I would go with Adrian Kempe, but the next captain of the Kings is going to be Drew Doughty. Jim in Calgary checks in. He says, first time emailer, just found the podcast. Obviously, I get no Kings talk here in Canada, so I'm glad I found you. Glad you found us as well, Jim. Believe it or not, big Kings fan in Flames territory, and big Drew Doughty fan, which did not make me popular when Tkachuk was still a Flame. That said, are we going to go through this whole situation again with Doughty and Team Canada? I have mixed feelings about this since I'm Canadian, but I'm a Kings fan as well. I think Drew cared more about the Four Nations last year and than the Kings, and I have my doubts that he cares more about the Olympics than the Kings this year. If he's hurt, he needs to rehab properly and come back to help the Kings and not push this and not be good for LA down the stretch. What are you hearing about this? Appreciate the pod. Keep up the good work, Jim in Calgary. I don't think the Doughty injury this time is as serious as it was last time. I don't know that because they haven't said exactly what the injury is, but he had a fractured ankle last year. I don't think he has a fractured ankle this time around, but I don't know that. I don't know what the injury is because they don't reveal those kind of things. So I do agree with you. I think last year, I think Drew pushed it to be back for the Four Nations. And I do think that probably affected his quality of play in the playoffs. I think that's fair criticism of him. And I do think if you gave Drew Doughty truth serum, which I don't know if that really exists, it's just the thing in the movies, I think he would say, honestly, that he cares more about the Canadian Olympic team than the LA Kings. Now, it doesn't mean he doesn't care about both. But I think if he was honest, I think he would say he cares more about the Olympics than the Kings, which, I mean, he's passionate about his country and playing for that country. That means a lot to him. And I respect that. But I also think his priority should be with the team that pays his salary. So I look, I don't know if this is another situation like that. I guess only time will tell. His timeline is to come back sometime in December. The Olympics aren't until February. So I don't think that situation applies this time around. I hope not. All right, Kings fans are talking about Jim Hiller's coaching decisions and his lineup moves. We'll get into that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have a full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've been putting off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, and get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. You can maximize investments, increase your savings rate, easily review finances with your partner or financial advisor while keeping a clear view of your financial health week to week and long term. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser and get half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with the code LOCKEDONNHL. I thought I was going to sneeze there for a second. Felt it coming on. It didn't happen. Scott, we continue with the emails. Scott in Simi Valley says, just caught the San Jose game and had to wonder why no Kevin Fiala in the shootout. We traded Brock Faber and a first-round pick to get Fiala, which was a good trade, but apparently that's not enough reason to actually play him. My point is that Jim Hiller is nothing special as an NHL head coach. Likewise for Ken Holland. Holland jerked Kempe around for months when he could have signed him for $10 million right away. I wonder if Holland gave Darnell Nurse such a tough time for only $1 million less way back in 2022. As for Luc Robitaille, Luke is great in the community, and we love Luke, but seemingly panicked with the GM search, and we still don't know if he interviewed anyone but Holland. My question to Phil Anschutz and Ed Rotsky is this. With LA being the second largest city in the nation, don't the players and fans deserve the best people in upper management? Hiller, Holland, and Luke are nice guys, but they are not the guys. It'll only take another year or two before Anaheim and San Jose see their young talent gel, and the Kings, without Kopitar or much in the prospect pool, could be third best in California. There's not much fans can do about this, but I'm just not feeling it for the future. I still have reasonable hopes for this year, but from the top down, the players, us fans, and the city deserve better. AEG has some work to do, and if they can't get it done, let's hope they sell the club to someone who can. Thanks, Eddie. Go Kings, go. Scott in Simi Valley. Well, you know what I have said, I assume multiple times on the shootout. Q, Kempe, Fiala. I don't care what order they're used in. Those are the three every time. I would say your concerns about the future are very valid. I talked about the prospect pool is not that deep and doesn't have a lot of high-end talent. Maybe Carter George turns out to be that, big time goalie of the future. Maybe Liam Greenshee turns into a Dustin Brown type of a player. But, those Macklin Celebrinis, those Connor Bedard guys, the Kings don't have any of those guys. And there's reasons for that. I've talked about it before. The Kings have not drafted high in the first round in many, many years. So, we know the Kings' history of signing free agents, which isn't good. Even if they could, there aren't really any big free agents going to be available in the offseason. They don't have much to trade with. They're going to keep drafting likely well outside of the top 10, which is where you get those impactful players. So I would say the future for the Kings is cloudy. And I would say let's focus on the now and we'll worry about the future later. But I think it's legitimate for any Kings fan to be concerned where this team's going to be in 4 or 5 years. Peter in Vail, Colorado says, I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but Luc Robitaille has gone on the Toronto-based Real Kipper and Bourne podcast the last 2 times the Kings have visited Toronto to play the Maple Leafs, but he rarely, if ever, appears on any of the Kings podcasts, including yours. I suspect it's because on a Canadian podcast, Luc only has to field softball questions from Eastern Conference-obsessed commentators who know next to nothing about the Kings, rather than face a more skeptical and knowledgeable Kings podcaster. Does it make sense for you to contact Kings PR and ask why they don't make Luc available to Locked on LA Kings when it seems he has time for out-of-town shows? On an unrelated subject, can Coach Jim Hiller not see that Quinton Byfield almost never wins the opening faceoff in overtime, and it costs the Kings possessions for the first minute or more? It happened again tonight in San Jose. Every other Kings center has a higher faceoff winning percentage this season. Kopitar 56%, Dano 53%, Turcotte 54%, then Byfield's horrific 40.6%. Why not have 11, 24, or 15 take the opening draw, since any one of them has a better chance of winning it? If the Kings win the faceoff, they will have possession, and the center who took the draw could immediately change in favor of Byfield. If the Kings lose in the faceoff, 11, 15, or 24 are as likely as 55 to get possession back, and Byfield will be rested for when the Kings have the puck. Keep up the great podcast, and that is Peter in Vail, Colorado. First off, with the Luc question, I think he might have played with Nick Kyprios, one of the hosts of that podcast, when he was with the Rangers. Maybe. So maybe there's a personal relationship there, and that's why he goes on that show. I don't know. As for the Byfield overtime faceoffs, and I know this email was sent before the Boston game, Q actually won the opening faceoff against the Bruins against a player that was specifically sent out just for the faceoff. But the problem was he won it back, but it wasn't back far enough that Brant Clark could get to it, or he didn't want to take the chance of trying to get to it and losing the battle for it, and then it goes the other way for a breakaway. So the Bruins actually got the first possession of that overtime. I don't know what the stats are about Q and overtime faceoffs. Clearly, the Kings have played a lot of those games this year. And you're right, that first possession is usually very, very important in overtime. And I've seen teams do that. I've seen teams put out a really good faceoff man just for the faceoff, and then if they win it, he changes. So it is a strategy worth looking into. I will say that. Chris in Oceanside says, hey, Eddie, really enjoy the podcast. I agree with your thoughts on Hiller and the constant line juggling. As anyone who has played a little hockey knows, when you're down a goal, you're generally putting out your best 5 or 6 players to try and tie the game. Shortening the bench is another tool that most teams will use when they're behind. Jim Hiller, on the other hand, seems to have an infatuation with juggling lines no matter when and what the score is, which I think is why the team is struggling to score goals. If you look at the Fiala line, for instance, each player, whether it's Byfield, Fiala, or Laferriere, has a role, and that's why they're so successful. Why break it up? This kind of constant instability makes it difficult for players to grow together with their line mates, and at a time when we only have one significant injury, it seems to be a foolish move. I'm ready to move on from Hiller and would like to know who the Kings might replace him with if they decide to fire him. We've already lost out on Quenneville and others. Who would you go with? Thanks, and keep up the good work. And that was Chris in Oceanside. Yeah, Jim Hiller does a lot of specialization at times with the lines. He'll even put out a certain player based on what zone the faceoff is being taken in, what's the score of the game, how much time is left in the period, things like that. And I guess a lot of coaches might do that kind of thing. But I understand the Kings have had trouble scoring goals lately. They went 2 games with only 2 goals, and you wanted to get Kuzmenko back in the lineup. You also, I think, wanted to get Trevor Moore going as well. So I I do understand this latest list of lineup changes. So I see why that was done. We have talked about the coaching candidates before, but I will repeat it. I think there are two names that make a lot of sense. Veteran coaches who have won the Stanley Cups or have taken multiple teams to Stanley Cup finals. That's Peter Laviolette and Pete DeBoer. Those, to me, would be the top two coaching candidates to replace Jim Hiller. But as I said, again, I don't think Jim Hiller right now is in any danger of being replaced. All right, Kings fans are talking about Andrei Kopitar and Andrei Kuzmenko's roles with the team. We will talk about that next. You're on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Let's be real, making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've heard them all before. It's just stress, I'm tired, or it happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support, and that's where Rugiet comes in. Rugiet.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. Rugiet makes it easy to get started. You just connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online, no awkward waiting rooms or in-person appointments. It prescribes your treatment ships discreetly straight to your door. The process is fast, simple, and private, and it's all handled by real doctors. It's about confidence, connection, and getting back to the moments that matter. Visit Rugiet.com, Rugiet.com/LockedOnNHL to get 15% off your first order. That's Rugiet, Rugiet.com/LockedOnNHL, and don't forget to use our code LockedOnNHL so they know that we sent you. Rugiet, stop making excuses and start making moves. And the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game, it doesn't matter because you can place live bets at any time of the game, beginning, middle, stretch run, whenever you want. You can bet on just about anything, like which player will score the next bucket or how many points he'll score by quarter, half for the game. Plus, you can contribute your own live bets for a same game parlay, player points, over-unders, who's going to win, combine it all together, and if it hits, you get a bigger payout. You want to bet on your favorite team? Lakers, Clippers? That's great. But if it turns out the game's a stinker, you can make it more interesting by placing a wager or two or three on point totals, over-unders, whatever. Regardless of the game, if it's a buzzer beater or a 20-point blowout, FanDuel makes every game exciting no matter what. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's right. You get $300 in bonus bets by hitting your first $5 bet. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Our next email comes from Steve Schindler, and he is in San Diego. And he says, I've been a huge Kopitar fan since day one. But as he fades into the sunset, can Jim Hiller really make the tough decisions to pull Kopi back somewhat if he's not performing the way he has in the past? We love Kopi, but we need to win now. And that was Steve in San Diego. Well, for what it's worth, and I did mention this on a show the other day, for the first time that I can remember, the official lineup submitted by the Kings for the game against the Bruins did not list Andrei Kopitar on the top line. Now, there have been times when Kopitar has been listed on the top line, and he may have not gotten more minutes than Quentin Byfield. So you could argue that he's not, necessarily on the top line. But it was something that I noticed, that kind of officially, for what it's worth, they did have him listed on the second line. Look, it's Kopitar's farewell season. I can't imagine Jim Hiller is going to do anything significant to, pull back, I think, as you put it, on Kopitar. And I don't think Kopitar is, embarrassing himself out there. He clearly is in the, the downside of his career, but I still think he's playing decent hockey. He's certainly, what are the options? I mean, Philip Deneau is not playing better than Andrei Kopitar. So Kopi's going to be, that second line center. Maybe the only thing I wonder about is maybe taking Kopitar off the number one power play unit. Because I think if you put Brant Clark out there, you're going to keep Corey Perry because you want that net front presence. And then you'd have Kempe and Fiala. And I guess Kuzmenko for now, because you need to see if we're going to get him going or not. So maybe that would mean putting Kopitar on the second unit. You'd have Kopitar, Byfield, Moore, LaFerriere, and I don't know, somebody at the point running it, Edmondson, Dumoulin, I don't know, until Doughty gets back. So that's the only thing I could see maybe changing a role for Andrei Kopitar. Brett in Wisconsin checks in. He says, I've been enjoying your podcast as a Kings fan here in Wisconsin. Awesome. Thank you. He says, I was wondering with the not stellar play of Kuzmenko, would maybe a trade to Buffalo for Jordan Greenway be a good change of scenery for both parties? And that was Brett in Wisconsin. I got to be honest, Brett, I did not think we would have a Jordan Greenway reference on the show. Now, I'm not claiming to be an expert on Jordan Greenway, but as far as I know, he's kind of a power forward type, not very fast, not very skilled, but he's big. He can go to the net. Is that what the Kings are missing right now? I don't know. I think we've got to give Kuzmenko more time to see if he can figure it out. If we were going to get somebody from Buffalo, I'd prefer it to be Alex Tuck, who is a top 6 winger that we could certainly use now and into the future. But we'll see. We'll see if he's even available. And if he is, there's going to be a lot of teams that are interested in him. Jed in Ontario says, so it's been 3 games in a row that we've lost, and I don't like what's going on. The team needs to do something, and Jim Hiller needs to do something in order to make us win at home. I'm having concerns about our team since Doughty got injured. So what do you think about what's going on? And that was Jed in Ontario. I think Jim Hiller is trying to do some different things with the lineup changes. And you're right, they have lost 3 in a row. But I will say, I try to be fair. The Kings have lost, or should they've played 5 straight games decided by 1 goal. 3 of them went beyond overtime, so they got a point out of them. So it's not like the Kings are getting blown out in any of these games. These are winnable games. And when you have the power play situation that the Kings have, 1 for 16 on the power play in their last 5 games, that is obviously making a difference. You get a power play goal in one of those games. That changes the outcome of it potentially. So, like I said, with Drew Doughty out, I thought it was a relatively easy decision to split up Doughty and Clark, put them on as the quarterback for each of the power play units. And I thought that would have been the easiest and most, I don't know, not convenient, is not really the word I'm looking for, but the kind of the easiest move to make to kind of change things around. But with Doughty's injury right now, that obviously is complicating things. Real quick, Andy in Guelph checked in right before we started recording, and he said that he went to the Dustin Brown jersey retirement in Guelph. He played his junior hockey there, and so he was there for that. He included some photos and a video of that, so thank you for that, Andy. That was very cool. He also said he watched Kings prospect Jimmy Lombardi, who was playing against Guelph for the Flint Firebirds. So appreciate that, Andy. Hope you had a good time at the Dustin Brown jersey retirement there in Guelph. I will say there was a fish story for me, the one that kind of got away. There was a Dustin Brown authentic worn Guelph jersey that was on eBay for like 3 years, and it was like $350. And I was like in my, how you could watch like an item, and I used to watch it, and I wanted to get it, and one day it was sold and it was gone, and I thought that would have been a really unique, amazing thing to have, and I didn't get it. That was one that got away. Ed in Brea closes us out. He says, just want to say I'm glad Kempe's extension got done. I said $10.5 million yearly. It finally ended up being $10.625. So close. He said, I will say this, Ed, you also, I'm pretty sure you said in an email that Kempe wasn't worth 10 because he wasn't a point per game player. So, all right, you were kind of close with your last prediction, but there was a time I remember you said he wasn't worth 10. He continues, just wanted to mention about the backup goaltending situation. David Riddick is having a better season and has less valued contract with the Islanders. Forsberg's 3-2-2, 2.94 goals against average, 888 save percentage, while Riddick is 5-2, 2.99 goals against average, and an 896 save percentage. Even though Forsberg has a lower GAA, Riddick has more wins and less average annual value. So to me, I think Forsberg is a serviceable backup. I think Riddick is having a better season with a team paying him now less than the Kings to be the backup. Darcy Kemper, I will say, on a closing note, has been playing well the last couple of games, showing why he was a Vezina nominee. One more note, good to see teams like the Sharks last night with former King Tyler Toffoli and Alexander Ovechkin of the Capitals giving gifts to Anze Kopitar, honoring a Kings legend and future Hall of Famer. Very cool and honorable to see. Keep up the good work. Go Kings go. And that was Ed in Brea. Yeah, I do agree. As it stands right now, David Riddick has been a better player than Anton Forsberg, and of course, he's making less money as well. So that makes that move so far for the Kings not looking great. We'll see where it is at the end of the season. But yes, for now, the Forsberg move has not worked out. And David Riddick is playing a little bit better than Forsberg for the New York Islanders. And of course, making less money and is only on a 1-year contract. All right. Thank you to everyone who took time to email this week. This show is literally not possible without your participation. If you want to get an email in for a future show for any other reason, the email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. And you can always leave your comments on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. We appreciate that. Stay interactive with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time. And as always, go Kings, go.